the shooting range. In this episode, Pages of History, an infantry tank for France, tactics and strategy, playing jet fighters, and metal beasts, beefed up Jackson. The American M36 Jackson tank destroyer, also known as the Slugger, has been around for a while now. It's a decent metal beast that's not trying to win the widest acclaim or challenge the champions of World War II. Still, it can deliver everything asked of it, and sometimes even much more. Don't believe us? Let us prove it. Please welcome the most advanced modification of the Jackson in War Thunder, Model B2, found in the Japanese tech tree. This machine is armed with a 90mm cannon, with elevation angles ranging between -10 and +20 degrees. Auxiliary calibers include 2 machine guns, 1 pintle-mounted and 1 coaxial. The crew placement follows a classic layout, 2 in the hull and 3 in the turret. The ammo racks are found in the turret rear and the hull sides. The focus point for any SPG is its weaponry, and even the most meticulous nitpicker won't be able to find a flaw here. Its 90mm capped rounds can penetrate most opponents' fronts while having enough explosive filler to ensure they're out once hit. In case this tank meets an extra thick enemy like the King Tiger, it always has some Heat FS in stock, with a pen rate exceeding 300mm. With an ace crew reload time of 7.5 seconds, you can switch between round types pretty quickly. Depression angles are also good. The gun can go 10 degrees down, enough to feel confident in almost any type of landscape. This gun alone would have been enough for the Jackson to be a successful SPG, but its advantages don't stop here. There's a few more things that make sure this machine transcends class limits. Number 1 is a fully functional turret that can rotate 360 degrees. The benefits are obvious. With this solution, you can shoot to the side when required, quickly shift your aim in an urban environment, and much more. The M36's strong side, number 2, is its good mobility. It's no Hellcat, of course, but still fast enough to leave many allies behind. Thanks to this unique trait, you can employ the Jackson for much more than its direct use as an SPG. It might become a light or even a medium tank. When needed, it can move in the front, hitting targets too tough for your teammates' guns. Don't forget to stay cautious when you launch into an attack, though. This SPG can't boast high survivability or protection. Its armor is pretty weak, only good enough against machine gun fire. Moreover, its tight internal layout and turret ammo racks certainly don't increase its chances. All in all, the Jackson's ticket to success is cold-blooded accuracy. Wait patiently for your enemy to empty their gun barrel and crush them with your own hit right after. The French had the best tanks in the world by the end of World War I. The list of their achievements was impressive for the early 1920s. Rotating turrets, electric transmissions, round-proof armor, a new light tank type for infantry support, and much more. But in less than a dozen years, all these advantages turned to dust. All sorts of tanks were being built in small batches, and the contractors couldn't seem to decide what they actually wanted. The root of this problem goes back to 1920. When the Army rolled out their requirements for the new main tank, the Char B1. They had a, let's say, peculiar vision for this machine. The main caliber was to be installed in the hull, with the turret only housing the machine gun and the lone commander. The implementation was just as odd. The hull was long and narrow to improve the tank's ability to cross trenches. There was very little space left to move the gun, so horizontal aiming required the crew to move the hull. In turn, this kind of aiming required a sophisticated, expensive transmission, pretty unique for the time. Later, the turret received a cannon, and this upgrade made the machine even more expensive. The B1 ended up as a tank that was odd, expensive, and complicated. It took almost 13 years before it finally hit production. There was no doubt that it wouldn't be able to quickly replace outdated machines and become the main one. Meanwhile, the Hotchkiss Company proposed a new, light, two-seat machine. In fact, it was the good old Renault FT, just upgraded to fit the modern standards, and it looked economically viable. Nevertheless, the plan went wrong again. Instead of a single tank, France got three: the R-35, the H-35, and the FCM-36. So, around the early 1930s, the French army was faced with an unpleasant choice. The B-1 was complicated and expensive, while affordable two-seat tanks had subpar characteristics. It seemed like two extremes that no one really wanted. Meanwhile, there existed a happy medium: the Char D2. It was created with an infantry support role in mind, but turned out to be superior to both the R-35 and the FCM-36. The D2 had excellent armor and a radio operator in its crew. Moreover, its 47mm cannon had no issues penetrating any German tank of the time. Unfortunately, this project ran into poor luck. The D2's development began in 1930, but Europe was soon hit with the financial crisis. Budgets were cut, and the tank could never make it into mass production. At the same time, London hosted a disarmament conference, where nations tried to reach an agreement on how to slow the arms race. One of the suggestions was to limit tank mass to 25 tons. The Char B1 didn't make the cut, but the D2 did. Soon, however, Germany quit, and the arms race resumed. The French put their trust into the B1, so its younger sibling found itself out of the race. Still, this medium tank had its fans. The D2 was the tank Charles de Gaulle served in, a famous tank theorist and the future president of France. Being almost 2 meters tall, he was extra grateful for this machine's spacious combat compartment. De Gaulle had so much training done with the D2 tanks that the entire fleet was pretty worn down by the start of the war. The tankers were waiting for new batches to come from the factories, but didn't even manage to receive 50 tanks. And this is how France had almost no infantry tanks ready for combat at the beginning of the war. In our previous episodes, we've already shared some hints on how to play various ground vehicles. Why don't we do the same with aircraft? Today we'd like to talk about the most dangerous airborne predators: jet fighters. As is tradition, we'll take 3 representatives of 3 generations of the class: the Me-262I Schwalbe, the MiG-17, and the F-14 Tomcat. Early jets often meet late piston aircraft in addition to other jets. They have much higher climb rates, and their acceleration dynamics leave the Schwalbe little to no chance. Piston engines have an acceleration rate that ensures success in long duels. The only advantage early jets have over them is maximum speed. Keeping all this in mind, here's what the best tactic for the Me-262 looks like. Once you take off, shift your course a little and accelerate to the best climbing speed near the ground, which is 520 kilometers per hour for the Schwalbe. After that, you can begin pitching your aircraft's nose until it starts slowing down. Keep up a speed of 520 kilometers per hour and climb to around 4,000 to 6,000 meters to ensure you gain enough energy. Now you can fly towards the center of the battle and use energy tactics to attack your enemies. You might not have enough speed for this tactic if you meet other jets, so you'll have to start a dogfight. Make sure there's no one else around when you do this, since everyone would be happy to use the chance. So basically, if you want to win on the Schwalbe, just keep an eye on your speedometer. Next generation fighters have much better power plants and aerodynamics, which results in better acceleration and climb rates. When your MiG-17 takes off, go towards the enemy right away. Just don't forget to accelerate to your optimal speed, 750 kilometers per hour in this case. Your main enemies are the same jets as you, with a rare addition of attack aircraft and bombers working at lower altitudes. The best tactic is still an energy attack. Keep in mind, though, that higher speeds mean less time for aiming, so you'll sometimes have to predict the position of the target to deliver a successful hit. The MiG-17 is pretty good in dogfights, too. Most aircraft have similar acceleration dynamics here, so losing a little bit of speed on turning won't become an issue. Still, you do well to avoid slowing down below 500 to 600 kilometers per hour. This recommendation is extra important if there's a lot of enemies around. Another new feature for second-generation fighters is air-to-air missiles. They're far from perfect and thus easy to dodge. Just spot them on time. In top-tier battles, however, dodging AAMs is far from simple. Missiles become the main tools of enemy destruction for 3rd and 4th generation fighters, while autocannons shift to secondary roles. This time, you don't need to climb high after takeoff. Top fighters have enough climb rate to rocket into outer space, but it doesn't bring a lot of benefits. So set your course to a gentle climb and watch your radar. It'll show you new targets much earlier than you can spot them with the naked eye. If the radar spots a target, you've got it. Half the business is done. All you have to do now is send some medium and long-range gifts. The F-14's arsenal has just the missile for it, the Phoenix. Also, don't forget to check your own RWR. It'll alert you if your own aircraft is targeted by enemy radar. This is Stage 1 of the battle, the one with an exchange of radar-guided munitions. Stage 2 is close-range combat, a real mess with tons of planes and IR-guided missiles. We can't recommend getting right into the heat of it. It's hard to survive no matter how advanced your aircraft is. It's much safer to keep to familiar tactics and attempt energy attacks. Fly fast, aim true, win some battles, and share your impressions. Meanwhile, we'll answer some of the questions from your comments. The first question was sent by a player called Commandant Killcode. If the LIM 5P is Generation 1+, then what kinds of aircraft would be considered Generation 2? Particularly, which ones in War Thunder? I thought that the MiG-9 was Generation 1, the MiG-15s and 17s were Generation 2, and the MiG-19 was early Generation 3. Hi, Killcode. Many classifications exist for jet fighter generations, each with its own pros and cons. We use the system that considers the earliest jets like the Me-262, the Meteor, the MiG-9, the F-80, and the Yak-15 Generation 0. Generation 1 includes machines from the Korean War, like the MiG-15, the F-86, and the Hunter. That's why we called the LIM 5P Generation 1+. Lu Haidong asks, what's the difference between GBU-8 and GBU-15? Hi, Lu. They're very similar, but the GBU-15 is a bit newer. The engineers managed to give it a slightly higher range. Another question comes from Kingbox Nugget 777. Are the Rank 3 and 2 BF-109s better for boom and zoom or not? Hi there, Kingbox Nugget. Messerschmitt's Series E are better suited for maneuverable fights. F models are versatile and thus can be used however you want. The BF-109G is more suitable for boom and zoom. Jonathan Parker writes, correct me if I'm wrong, but the IS-5, the missing link seemingly, is the design which went on to become the T-10, right? Hello, Jonathan. The naming here can be a bit confusing. Sometimes the IS-5 name is used for the Object 248 that you can earn now in Battle Pass. The IS-5 is also a project that was later renamed, first to IS-8 and then the T-10. Different tanks, same name. And the last comment for today was written by American Hat. Can you do a triathlon between each country's first tank destroyers or light tanks that fill that role? Hello again, Hat. Sounds like a great idea. We'll see what we can do. Thanks for the idea. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to pull up when there's ground ahead, leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.